programs in the UK and in Europe. So before I turn it over to our moderator to lead the discussion, I just wanted to share a little bit about who we are and what we do here at Forte. So Forte, we are a nonprofit that is working very hard to fuel the future of business. And we do this through an alliance of business schools, undergraduate institutions, leading companies. And we just want we want to help you reimagine what's possible for your future, for your career, for your bank account. And so we do this through various programmings, resources, network opportunities, events, and programming that are all designed to help you succeed at your goals. In particular, if you are looking to hit those apply buttons this fall, we definitely want you to look into our MBA Launch On Demand program. It is a asynchronous on-demand program that can be completed in as little as 3 weeks, but it helps to give you kind of a level up prior to submitting your application. So you'll learn about yourself, you'll learn about essays, you'll learn about interviews, school selection, all those nitty-gritties in a compact asynchronous program. If you are looking to submit applications anytime between fall of 2026 and spring of 2027, this is going to be the program that you'll definitely want to do. And you will have access to the program as soon as you enroll. So if you are interested in this, later on, I'll drop a link to the website so that you can read more about putting in your best application and how we can help you with that. We could not do the work that we do today without our amazing partners. So I just want to give a special shout out and thank you to the schools that are appearing on today's panel, in addition to sponsoring today's webinar. So thank you so much to London Business School, IMD, Polimi, EdHec, and Copenhagen. We appreciate so much you sharing your expertise and your knowledge with our audience today. If you have any questions about anything that you see today, whether it's MBA Launch Program or learning about getting an MBA globally and want to connect further, we are more than happy to help connect the dots for you. Please email us at premba@fortefoundation.org. So let me stop sharing and turn it over to our moderator who will lead the discussion on how to take your MBA global.
Thank you so much, Melissa. Hey, everyone. I'm Divya. I'm a Forte alumni board member, and I'm also an alumni of ESA Business School, which is based out of Barcelona. And I'm London-based currently, and I work as a product marketing manager. So that's just a little about me. If anyone wants to connect after the webinar, feel free to do so. But I'd like to kick off our little session today by having each of our panelists introduce themselves. Maybe we'll start with Mark, because you're the closest on my screen.
Thanks, Divya. Welcome, everyone. Thanks for joining this session today. My name's Mark. I'm head of the international recruitment team for EDHEC Business School. We're based in France. We're a top 10 European school. Our campus is in Nice, but we teach in English. And we have strengths, particularly in sustainability, return on investment, and entrepreneurship. I myself have worked, this is my third European business school that I've worked for. So hopefully I can talk about generally to what to expect from the European market. Thank you.
Maybe Vanessa, do you want to go next?
Sure. Thank you, Divya. Hello, everyone. And thank you to Forte for organizing this session. My name is Vanessa Crippa, and I'm part of the recruitment and admission team for MBAs at Polimi Graduate School of Management. That is the business school of Politecnico di Milano. So we are based in Milan, Italy. And for those of you who do not know Politecnico di Milano, we are the first Italian university in architecture, design, and especially engineering. So let's say that as part of a technical university and the leader in innovation and research, we are built on a foundation of innovation and practical approach with a strong connection with companies and the market, because we are owned by Politecnico di Milano, but also by companies. So programs are designed in collaboration with them. And we're really, let's say, industry. Just to give you a very brief overview of our MBAs, at our school we offer two formats of MBA programs, both international. There is one full-time MBA lasting one year and one part-time lasting 2 academic years. Thank you.
Monet, would you like to go next?
Thank you, Divya. Hi, everyone. It's lovely to be here. My name is Monet Laws. I'm the Senior Global Recruitment Manager here at London Business School for the MBA and also the Masters in Finance programs. Really excited to be here and talk about all things sort of studying in the UK and Europe. And I think it's going to be super informative, especially if you're looking to come from the US and different parts of the world and you haven't kind of looked into this side yet. About LBS, we have two MBAs, one newly launched 1-year MBA, which has a prerequisite of a Master's in Management from an accredited business school, and we have a 15 to 21 months MBA as well. So I'm happy to kind of talk about both of those. But again, if you do want to continue the conversation past this, please do connect with me on LinkedIn or reach out to our team mba@london.edu. Looking forward to it.
Andrew, would you like to go next?
Sure, thank you. I'm originally from the UK. I'm actually in the recruitment and admissions team for the full-time MBA at Copenhagen Business School. I also did my own MBA back in London as well, so hopefully I can give both perspectives today. For the full-time MBA at Copenhagen Business School, we have one intake per year. We're also triple accredited, but we're a 1-year intensive program. And it's a general management MBA, but we have a key, let's say, ethos and a mindset focused particularly on sustainability and responsible leadership. It's mostly international candidates that join us. Maybe like 90% of the candidates are international. Actually, US is the biggest country represented this year. And our gender parity is very strong. We have 55% of the candidates this year that are female candidates. We do well on value for money rankings, and then probably more importantly, Copenhagen itself does very well on the most livable city index things and happiness indexes. So happy to answer any of the practical questions and maybe the lifestyle questions as well.
Thank you, Andrew. And last but certainly not least is Catherine.
Thank you, Divya. Hi, everyone. I'm Catherine Eastwood. I'm the Regional Recruitment Advisor at IMD Business School. We're based in Lausanne, Switzerland, so that's the French-speaking part of Switzerland. And I love this topic today because I'm the Regional Advisor for LATAM, so these questions come up very often, actually. IMD has one MBA program that starts once a year, so only one cohort per year. And it's a full-time MBA with a strong focus on leadership. This is really part of our ethos. And we also have a high experiential part. So 40% of the learning is outside of the traditional classroom. The class size is very small, so very intimate and highly diverse as well.
Nice. Thanks, everyone, for sharing a little bit more about yourselves and also the schools. I'd like to kick off with a broad question, which I'm sure many panelists and attendees are probably thinking about today, and that's in our current, global economy, what actually makes getting an MBA in UK or even in Europe especially compelling? And either one of the people on the panelists can kick it off, whoever would like to.
I don't mind.
I'm happy. Sorry.
No,
Thank you. That was bound to happen. There's lots we can talk about here, and I'm sure we'll do answering other questions. When I was asking our program director about this, she said that Europe particularly leads the way in terms of sustainability and AI governance. So if those are topics that you're interested in, this would be a good region to study them in. Obviously, but Andrew and myself both mentioned that it's a focus for our business schools and our MBA programs, and I think that's true in many European schools.
I think just to come off the back of what Mark's saying as well is I think European business schools specifically, and I can talk obviously more to LBS, is where we're super international and our curriculums are very international. And so we're in the business of creating diverse international leaders who can deal with diverse problems and diverse groups of people. And I think that's why people are drawn more to come and study their MBAs in the UK and in Europe, so that they can get that real international experience that they can bring to their next workplace. And I think that's something that all of us really care about, all of our schools, and are very sort of we put a lot of energy into making sure that we're delivering these kind of international leaders that can lead global businesses. And that's really important, I think, a big draw for this region.
Vanessa, I saw that you came off mute. Maybe you have something
I
to
would
add.
also add, let's say, a practical side, because another important factor, I think, is the balance between quality and pricing. So European programs are often also shorter in terms of duration, so this can reduce the living cost. So I think that's another important point. And maybe quality of life is also a key element, because many European cities provide a very attractive environment for students, combining, professional opportunities with culture and overall a good lifestyle. So yeah, I would also add this.
Yeah, I agree with everything colleagues have said. And then really topical at the moment is around return on investment, and that piece that Vanessa mentioned in terms of the length of the program and then the cost. We're literally not allowed to charge more than the program costs us. So there's some elements there with some schools where you're not allowed to make profit on the programs. But I think we can be really generalistic as well. Like, it's quite a holistic approach towards an MBA. Yes, of course, the networking is still important, and forgive me for being generalist in comparing it to North America, where you might go to a specific school to focus on a specific region for specific companies and salaries. Whereas I do think that diverse perspectives that the colleagues at LBS mentioned, my name mentioned, that really does play into it. And then, yes, of course, it's still important, but I would say particularly in Scandinavia here, it's about training your critical thinking towards management and leadership. So you can sort of connect those dots between people, strategy, and execution, rather than just focusing on the network, and very much focus on the collaborative elements within the course. And that's very much how work and teaching is here, collaboration rather than competing against each other. So there's a difference in characteristics there as well. Again, I'm being tremendously generalistic, but I think that's an important point too.
Yeah, and I think I can attest to what everyone on the panel said, having also gone to a European or UK kind of European-based business school. I think the other thing that makes it compelling is the international element, which I think we all talked about in terms of the diversity of cohorts that come to a lot of the European business schools or in the UK. That's, I think, a big difference compared to some of the American schools. So I'd say if you're also considering that as an angle, that helps. And I'm sure we'll talk more about it later, but if any of the candidates are looking for like diversity of thought or thinking or anything that's different, again, because you have different groups of students that tend to come to European schools, I think that also helps add to the diversity. And one reason why an MBA could be compelling, change your perspective from what you kind of do day to day in your job, and you're looking for pivots. Again, I'm sure we'll cover that too later. But I think we could switch gears, because a lot of people will be wondering this now as they're looking at UK or EU programs versus the US MBAs. How is it different in its structure or learning style and career pathways? So yeah, I think that's something we could discuss next. Maybe Catherine, do you want to go first?
Sure, happy to. Obviously, I think the research needs to be done on all the schools that you're targeting in Europe, but there's also maybe a difference in the duration of the program. For instance, at IMD, we're quite short, it's just 1 year, so very intensive. But that may vary from one school to the other in Europe. I know that the majority of the schools in the US offer longer periods of MBAs, so that's one thing to consider. But I think the main difference, then it would vary also from one school to the other, but is really the experience, right? They're less case focused and more project focused. So really what you learn in class, the theory, you apply it directly into a project right after the the class. So it's really that experiential component that's highly impactful here in the European schools and the UK schools as well. And that means that with the diversity that we were speaking to earlier on, you really get to learn from various cultures, ways of working, and that's super important also to acquire in terms of your MBA skills.
Yeah, and just to follow on from that, if I may, I think we all inevitably think about the diversity of our class, which is true, but of course it's also the faculty and the staff. So they bring an international aspect to the teaching as well. And I've certainly heard that while US schools can be relatively regional in terms of their content and focusing on North America, for their case studies and for their content, most European schools would be pretty global in terms of their cases and their content, which is obviously also coming from the diversity of the classes and the professors that teach here as well. And as Catherine said, tend to be very much on the applied side, using, implementing what you learn in projects, even if you're not doing an executive MBA where you're working at the same time.
Yeah, I'm gonna chime in and say similar things here, but I know that at London Business School, a lot of people sort of they look at us similarly to a US school, but some of the differences there are, and across Europe, are the flexibility of the MBA. So even at LBS, we have a 2-year MBA program, but it's 15 to 20 months, so 21 months. So you can exit at 3 different points along the way if you do wish to finish earlier in the sort of program and still being able to complete the full program. So there are options there for you to flex around what's happening in your life, what opportunities come up along the way. And as my colleagues said, across the other business schools, it's really important that students have the ability to grow those skills, those interpersonal skills, as well as their sort of critical thinking. And so we're really big on peer-to-peer learning, and that's why so much effort goes into creating these cohorts that can really learn from each other. And so that's where we look at the diversity of thought and background and years of experience to make sure that students aren't just learning from their faculty, which is obviously super important, but when they go into their group work and they go into the food hall at lunch, they're learning from their peers as well. And so I think that's sort of where it differs slightly. And then of course, in terms of career outcomes, when you look at the US, it is much more US focused in terms of if a participant that I speak to or a prospect wants to work in the US in a specific region, then it may be that going to a US school will suit their profile more. But if they're really looking for that international scope and to go broadly, out of the region, then I would say that's when they need to start looking at schools outside.
Yeah, I just wanted to double click on all the points that were just made around also knowing kind of where you want to get to after the MBA program, because I do agree that if you really do want to work in the US, that kind of region-specific nature of the schools that we discussed, both in their teaching style and their kind of job opportunities, does make a difference. That's not to say you can't work in an American corporation if you were in kind of UK or European-based school, but it is different and/or difficult, just because a lot of those companies would tend to hire in the US. And so I think as you're all considering kind of where you want to go to business school, I think also thinking about your longer term plans and kind of ambitions also has a part to play. And I'm sure we want to also double click a little bit more on the student communities. We already mentioned briefly how they could be more diverse. And so maybe each one of you could share a little anecdote of how you think this international diversity actually shapes this experience in each of your respective schools.
Yeah, maybe I can jump in there if that's all right with colleagues. Well, we Copenhagen Business School is quite big itself, but we specifically designed the MBAs to be quite small. It's about 45 candidates per year, absolute maximum 49. This year we have 25 different nationalities, but it's not just nationalities, this diverse perspectives. It's industry background, it's education background, it's even to a certain extent experience as well. So The idea being that it's very collaborative, team-based activity in Scandinavia in the workplace and the way we teach. So we don't want you to just be learning from, and this is the key thing on an MBA, right? You don't want to just be learning from your professor. You want to be learning from your fellow participants as well, for sure, and then through the extracurricular activity you do with the companies. So that's definitely the community aspect that we try and focus on, and lean into that collaborative rather than competitive, lean into that sustainability and responsibility or responsible leadership mindset. And that will be a theme for all of the schools here, is to sort of find what your post MBA goals are, practically speaking, in terms of career, but also from a personal perspective. And the keyword may be fit or alignment. Figure out what that is for you. Spend the energy thinking about that. And then the schools themselves can work with you on the diverse perspectives aspect, and give you an idea of where their key sort of typical industries, typical education backgrounds are from, because that will vary slightly from place to place. If that makes sense.
Yeah,
Thank
Vanessa,
you,
go ahead.
Andrew. Maybe yes, I totally agree with you. I mean, with my colleague Andrew, for Polyme Graduate School of Management is the same. I mean, the program is highly international and diverse. So you often find participants coming from different countries, industries, have different levels of experience. And I really think that the diversity plays a major role in shaping the learning experience, because much of the value comes from the peer-to-peer interaction. So working in a multicultural class helps students develop soft skills such as communication, adaptability, leadership in global context, and it also, let's say, naturally expands also professional perspectives, since classmates bring insights from different markets and different business environments. So many graduates say that the network they build within the cohort becomes one of the most valuable long-term outcomes of the MBA.
Anyone else want to add any other perspectives?
Yeah, I'd love to from the LBS side. So I guess this is something that we talk about so much when I talk to prospects, especially over in the US, because I think it's also always a big question of, when you say diversity, what does that mean and what does that look like? And I always start with the stat of, well, 90% of our cohort is usually from outside of the UK. So the UK on campus is actually, UK students on campus are actually a minority when it comes to their first, landing on the campus and then realizing you're actually amongst hundreds of people who are also from a different place. That is their first time here and they're just learning as well. So that creates a real amazing buzz on campus those first few weeks, when those students realize exactly how international it is. And I was speaking to a student from the US the other day, and she said, you did talk to me about how diverse it was, but until I got onto campus, I really realized, wow, this is actually so impactful. And, the way that we curate the seating charts and the study groups, so that there's not one person that's from the same country in one study group, so that it just makes sure that these students are getting a real experience of what that looks like, and what talking to people from different backgrounds and communicating and managing issues and problems with them looks like. And that then amalgamates itself into things like our student clubs, where we have, our India club or our Africa club, or we have our Black in Business club or our Women in Business club. And it gives students those hubs where they can immediately go to when they first come to LBS, where they feel like they belong, or they feel like they can connect with people who are similar to them, or come from a similar background. So these are sorts of kind of ecosystems that it creates, and then that sort of goes into our alumni network as well around the world, where those alumni that then go back to their home countries or to different countries can then connect with those students or alumni from different parts of the world. And it's all about connectivity and networking and creating an ecosystem that will serve our students for the rest of their working careers.
I think Sorry, if I can just add something quickly as well on the diversity front, because I think there's also an obvious thing that we forget to mention sometimes is you're studying in Europe and you're not stuck on campus or in the classroom all the time. And I mean, Europe is many countries and cultures crammed together right next to each other. So look, I mean, you can jump on a plane and go to go to Copenhagen for the weekend. I can get on a train and get to Milan very quickly, and vice versa. So, we take the class places around Europe during the 10 months they're with us, but you can also go off yourself at the weekend very easily and, experience other cultures and meet companies from around Europe very, very easily if that's something you want to do yourself.
There was actually an interrelated question that came in from Valeria, who asked if we could collectively share the percentage breakdowns of students that are recruited across each region. I don't know, like 30% in Asia, 25% in the US. I don't know if you have those stats on hand to share, but I just thought it was relevant to our diversity point. So. To go first.
No, I think Andrew said they normally have about 20, 25 different nationalities in their class each year in a relatively small class, and it's similar for us, I guess. I don't know the exact breakdown per region off the top of my head, but yeah, more in terms of just there being a lot of different nationalities represented.
We have the breakdown of who attends on our website. So I'm just going to pull this now, but it's around 11% from Europe, 9% UK, 17% North America, 20% Central and South America, and 15% Southeast Asia and East Asia, and then a couple of other scattered percentages in the other regions. So you can view that on our website per program. It's on there. But also for all other schools, they will have this data. If you connect with your recruitment officer or your admissions officer from those schools, they'll be able to provide you. And we're usually quite proud of, I think I can speak for all of us when I say we're usually quite proud of the spread of nationalities that we have on our programs.
Yeah, in the interest of time and not throwing a bunch of statistics at people, maybe, but did so. Yeah, it's similar percentages, and probably we don't group Europe as one, but probably Europe would be biggest for us, but then US, South Asia, East Asia, yeah, what you guys mentioned as well. Interesting, but yeah, definitely the individual schools will be able to share that in much more detail.
Yeah, and I think Monet also highlighted a really good point that most of the schools have this as part of their prospectus kind of brochure. So if you do go to all the individual schools' websites, usually you can see that. So hopefully that helps you, Valeria. Thanks for your question. Now, I think we're getting to the crux of, I think, why most of our attendees are here, and they would be really keen to understand what should applicants actually know about admissions and timelines for each of your programs. So maybe we can kick off with that. And maybe I'll start with Catherine this time.
Thanks, Divya. So again, please check with every school that you're interested in because the timelines would be different. At IMD, for example, you would need to start applying the previous year for the following year. So if you're interested in starting in January 2027, you would have to apply by October 2026. We have multiple deadlines that are across the year to apply for the next year. And in terms of the application, I think one thing I really want to highlight that I highlight quite often for those coming from outside of Europe and who need a visa to study in Switzerland or in a European country, UK or in the UK, is to apply as early as they can. I know it's difficult. You want to get your GMAT done, you want to get your essays prepared, but it's also important that you apply earlier, especially if you want to just reduce that stress levels before starting the year. Let's put into perspective that you're closing your life at home, you're starting in a new country, you're preparing everything. So the visa process is just something that you want to reduce stress on. And also just for scholarship opportunities, although there are scholarship opportunities towards the end, of course, it's just more advantageous, I would say, more opportunities throughout the earlier part of the year as we're constructing the class for the next cohort.
Thanks, Catherine. I'm going to slightly contradict Catherine in what I have to say, which is sometimes when we're talking to candidates coming from other parts of the world, they think they have to apply really far in advance, which is recommended. But we have an intake in September, and we're still open for applications until June. Because for many nationalities, including from the US, it's actually quite quick to get a visa to study in France. So my message is actually it's not too late, even for this year. And the other thing we touched on, typically the kind of age and work experience profile of European schools, particularly I know IMD and also edX tends to be a little bit older than in the US, and that means in terms of our admissions policy as well, we tend to be a bit more biased towards work experience in terms of how we weight that in the admissions process. So your CV and interviews would count for a lot, and we would maybe weight GPAs and tests a little bit less in the process compared to the US. And we have our own in-house test option if you don't have GMAT or GRE as well.
Yeah, we're also, I would say, on the average age compared to the global industry, or global MBA. It is also older, so that's interesting to hear. I think generally speaking as well, that thing we mentioned earlier, alignment, and what we mean by that as CBS, and perhaps this applies to other schools, is what you've done previously in terms of your career experience, your academic experience, why specifically you're applying to our MBA, and then what your post-MBA goals, personal and professional, in the next, say, 3 or 5 years are, how those interconnect. Essentially, what's your narrative that's like a red thread through those things. That's a big part of the application. If you can answer that coherently, that tends to lead to a holistically strong application. And then for us, our final deadline is 10th June for non-EU candidates. So yeah, there is still time. That said, last couple of years we did close a little bit early, so just reach out if you're struggling there. On a very basic level, I do say to candidates, you need 3 key pillars to be ready for an MBA application. It's this interesting alignment question. An application test is usually, for most of us, including us, and then the financial plan. So to have that ready as well when you're ready to make your application, or at least make your decision, is important. You need to know how you plan to support yourself during that year. We do work with Sallie Mae, we do work with American providers there as well, but it's something that you maybe should start to think about before you, or at least during you making your application process as well.
Yeah, and I guess I'll slightly if we're contradicting, I slightly contradict Mark as well in terms of at LBS it's slightly different. We don't have a weighting against more part of the application than the other. It is more holistic across the board. So there isn't one part of the application that will sort of boost you up and another part that will sort of bring you down. We look at everything quite equally. So when people ask about GMAT, GRE averages or benchmarks, we give kind of an average, but again, we always say that if you get that, it doesn't mean that you're automatically in, and if you're below that, it doesn't mean that you're automatically out. We expect a well-rounded application, everything from your academic transcripts all the way to your referrals, your references, sorry, and your essays. So that's really important to us to have that 360 view of the student and understand what parts they're going to be kind of bringing to the class. And also we understand that there's a difference across the board in terms of regionally on scores of GREs and GMATs and experiences that they may have had. So it's important to take that stuff into consideration. But again, in terms of applying, we have 3 rounds. Our last round for our MBA is actually just closed, but we do have a late application process if there is a reason for that, for you applying later. But generally our programs start in August and we open our applications for the next year in August, the year before. So yeah, it's good to be prepared. Business school is a huge step, especially financially. So if it's something you're willing to do, you should look to prepare as early as possible, especially if you're traveling from your home country and you haven't sort of lived in another country before.
And last but not least, Vanessa. I saw you came off of
Yeah,
mute earlier.
thank you. Yes, I actually I'm in line with what Monet said. I mean, our admission process is pretty holistic, so we don't only look at academic background and test scores, but also at professional experience, clarity of career goals, and especially, let's say, the ability to contribute to a diverse classroom. Okay. In terms of applying, the program starts, the full-time MBA starts in September. And if you need to require a visa, of course, you will need to do it within June. But it depends. Some years we close the applications even before that day. So yeah, the sooner the better. But we do admission on a rolling basis.
Yeah, so I guess if I was to summarize kind of what everyone said in different ways is, although every school might have rolling deadlines, they take intakes at different times of the year because of different rounds. I think the biggest message is apply when you're ready, like when you're clear about your career goals, why the school, and you're able to articulate that in a good kind of narrative and explanation as you get into that. One interesting question that just came through, someone asked if there is a career gap, let's say 1 or 2 years, how does that impact your chances of being considered for admissions at any of these European schools, even if you had a really good GMAT? Maybe we can get 1 or 2 kind of takes on that.
Well, Mark's comment in the chat sums it up really well, Mark. Maybe you want to jump in with that, actually.
No, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, you say it because you brought it in there. I think that's a great point. I didn't think about that. Really good point.
Just well, in terms of reaching it, yeah, like I think we're all here. We all have teams that are here to help candidates with their decision-making process. You know, is an MBA right for you at all, and is our one right for you? And also in terms of you know, just the practicalities of doing your best in the admissions process, because we want that. We want you to show your best self, and we can help prepare you for the admissions process. I'm sometimes disheartened when we sort of get an application out of nowhere and you know they haven't sort of thought it through well enough, or they haven't reached out to alumni, or their CV isn't great, and you just think, oh, if they'd been in touch with us pre-application, you know, they would have stood a much better chance of admission or a higher scholarship or whatever. So that I think we probably all agree with that. That just make, you know, it doesn't cost you anything. Please reach out in advance. And just on that specific question around the gap, obviously we'll all say it depends what you did in that time. Better to explain that than try to hide it. The only gap I don't like is if I hear people say they took a year off to prepare to apply to business school, because okay, yes, we're all saying you should take it seriously, but you don't need a year of applying to business school or studying for GMAT.
Yeah, I really like the take that you shared, Mark, there. And yeah, so if anyone wants to take one thing away from this webinar already, it's being very clear of why you want the MBA, why you want these programs. And I completely agree about reaching out, because it's one of the things I did before I applied to business schools. And I know you might be worried to do it being like, oh my God, they're part of the admissions committee, but actually you really should, because they can help guide you or shape different ideas or options and help you also answer the question of, is this the right MBA program for you or them?
Can I just add one more thing on that career gap? Is everything that Mark said I agree with. It really is about what you've done in that gap, what you've used it for. But something that applicants should think about is the career path they're trying to take, because sometimes when we look at that career gap, it's not just about us at business school, it's about what your CV will say to the employer once you're trying to get a job when you leave. And once you have that career gap on your CV, there are some industries that will, you know, not take kindly to that, and they'll want a solid explanation as to why. And so we will question that depending on what your career aspirations are, but generally, if you've got a solid reason that makes sense, then it shouldn't be something that holds you back.
Yeah, and I think we have a question that's just coming from Lindsay, which deep dives a little bit into what we discussed, where she asks if we don't have as much work experience as, you know, some of the schools are looking at, what factors would help the admissions committee actually assess whether this candidate could contribute well to the cohort? Maybe we could just get a quick 1 or 2 comments on that.
Yeah, sorry to jump in, but I think we all say kind of years of work experience is a bit of a shortcut. But of course, what matters most is what you've done in that time. So, you know, when as you're applying for a job, it's all about what your achievements are. You know, have you just been treading water, or have you some really significant achievements that you can articulate well in that time? And yeah, we've been talking about diversity. Andrew mentioned it. It's diversity of age as well and experience. So while European schools might be on average more experienced than their US counterparts, of course we still take people with 3 or 4 years of experience, and you know, so long as it's kind of high quality and they can talk about why they're doing an MBA now, and you know, what they're looking to get out of it, and they have coherent career goals and everything like that.
Yeah, I would jump on that as well and say, like, if you're in that position, focus on answering that question for yourself as well. Why now? And then coming back to, I'm going to sound like a broken record, but if it fits into your narrative of this is why I'm looking at this MBA now, and this connects to my previous career experience, these are my goals afterwards, then it won't necessarily discount you. It sounds like all of us look at these things holistically. So it's really linking there to what Mark said, but it's really just sort of having to think about that yourself as well, and how that interconnects with the rest of the points. So I would say that there won't be one thing, yes or no, with most places. There's minimum eligibility criteria, of course, but even those, maybe sometimes there's, if you're particularly strong in certain areas, then you may be able to talk about that with an application or an interview. So don't necessarily think it discounts you, but be prepared to answer that question would be for us and for yourself.
Yeah, and I guess if I could summarize a lot of what we've said already, we talked about being very clear about why the MBA, why the school, having that narrative about what you want, what you have done as you're preparing your CV, but also what you would like to do, because that's something that would help you in the applications. Earlier, we also talked about fit, like it came up a lot across a lot of our conversations. And a lot of times people can't visit, you know, each of your schools in person. So the question is, what is the most effective way for, you know, candidates to understand if this school is the right fit for them? Catherine, go ahead.
Happy to answer that. So I think we mentioned it also multiple times throughout the webinar. Reaching out to the advisors or somebody from the school is one, you know, main point. I have calls from people who have already applied or who are just in introductory phase. So that would be really the first point of contact. And then alumni, because they have experienced it and they have the most unbiased, you know, opinion on what they've experienced and how far they've come after the MBA program. So that's super important. Take a look at our events as well, because we may be coming to you. So make sure that you know, pinpoint the event page of the schools that you're applying to. And all of our schools offer either a masterclass online or some sort of webinar where you get to experience the class and how professors really convey the course to you. So if you're really looking at, you know, where should I apply, where do I want to learn, let's say, that would be one point.
Vanessa, I think you came off of mute earlier as well.
No, actually, I completely agree with Catherine, especially on the trial classes or sample lectures. I think those are very important to give you, you know, a taste of the teaching methodology, of the community aspect, the faculty, and this can really be helpful to determine whether the program aligns with. candidates' expectation, and also speaking directly with alumni. Don't be afraid to connect with them on LinkedIn, or also current students that can provide very practical insights about the classroom experience, the workload, the culture, also the city, the services that a school is offering, and so on.
Yeah, I wanted to just double click on what both Catherine and Vanessa said. I think talking to alumni is really, really critical, because it gives you kind of the not the brochure experience, if you will. Like, it's a real person who can then tell you what they liked about the courses, the curriculum, what they would have liked to see differently, or what they would improve. And I think especially if you can find people who have been trying to do the similar pivot that you are, if you are trying to pivot, and or if you're trying to go deeper into something, that helps just add like color, I guess, to the experience. So I definitely double click on talking to alumni, and also attending all the courses or classes online that the schools offer. Just gives you like an inside look into what that's like. Now let's move to another kind of topic and area of interest, which is about typical career outcomes for anyone that graduates. People are curious to know, what do these outcomes look like, and how does geography or visa or any of these global mobility factors play into the case? Because not everyone obviously might be a European citizen or have the right kind of work authorization. So 2 questions there. Whoever would like to kick us off.
It's another one where everybody will have their careers reports, I should say, as well. So that's a really good resource usually. Yeah, I mean, transition is usually, if you come into an MBA, that's usually what people are looking for. The bare minimum probably on every MBA is that most people are looking transition role, if not everybody. So I'd say we have about 70% change industry, even change more than that's change function. And then specifically for our location, Denmark, we actually have a really high amount want to stay in Denmark afterwards. So it's around 70, 80% each year that stay in Denmark, partly because our visa is 3 years post-study work visa right now, which is really generous, and you're able to bring family and things like that as well at the moment. So there's the practical element that you already mentioned. Like I say, there's a lot of statistics on our website, and all of us, I know in this room, will have strong careers outcomes at the level of the schools we have here. So happy to pass it on to other colleagues as well. But it's a big part of the MBA at most schools will be the focus on careers for sure.
Yeah, I will chime in there. I think this is, top 1, 2 reasons why people do an MBA. If it's not the network, it's probably the career outcome. And this is something that is, heavily focused on from day one. So it's from the admissions process, we're looking at what your career outcomes are to make sure that the school has the tools to support you in hopefully giving you as much chance as achieving that as possible. So, that's stuff to think about when you are applying is, what is this school going to be able to get me where I want to go? Or am I going to be able to pull the strings within the school to get me to where I want to go? So for us at LBS, around 50% end up staying in the UK, and around 50% end up either going back to their home countries to work, or doing moving to a new geography. I think it's important to look at what those schools' ties are with different industries. Some schools will have, depending on region, they'll have a stronger tie with a certain sector. So I know that US schools, maybe closer to Silicon Valley, will have a better, tie to the tech world than, a school that's not in Silicon Valley. So these are all things to think about in terms of what industries and sectors you're looking to go into. For us at LBS, we're super well known for our ties with the financial sector, so we do have a strong ties with them, and also consulting, which is where most of our students, a large percentage of our students end up going. But then we also have the diversified sectors and the tech sector as well. So these are all things that are in our our careers manual that you can get on our employment report, that you can get on our website, and that you'll be able to get on everyone's website. But it's important that you look at the statistics: who's coming in, who's going out, where they're going, how much are they earning, what jobs are they going on to do, because that will also give you scope of what alumni are out there for you to connect with as well, and how many people have gone on to do what you want to do. So these are all really important things, and visa considerations we talk about, our careers team will talk about a lot, is you do need to make sure you're aware of those visa rules, that, you know, what country you're going to or where you want to work. To work in the UK post graduation, we do have the graduate route visa that allows you to work after you graduate for a couple of years without having to have sponsorship. But then after that, you still will need sponsorship. So these are all things that you need to think about when choosing your location and choosing your business school, and all of the things that tie itself around that.
If I'm trying to think of different things to say, but I think also that diversity point that we've been mentioning all through this call also applies to careers, right? So I think most MBA students will be surprised, A, by the diversity in the class, also the diversity of career aspirations and outcomes of their classmates, because I think often people come in and think, oh, everyone will be wanting to go into X like me, and actually that's not the case at all. And I think for us, like, there's no sector that hires more than 20% of the class. You know, it's literally across all sorts of different sectors, particularly nowadays where generally speaking, consulting is hiring a little bit less than it used to be, but sectors like healthcare or energy have seen some increases in Europe. So I think there's a lot of, you know, be very open-minded. Yes, have thought about it, but be very open-minded to opportunities that come your way on an MBA program. It might not be where you initially thought it would be. Maybe you take a particular class and you realize that actually you hate finance and you like something else. Maybe you meet someone in your class who's worked in FMCG and, oh, that sounds exciting, you know. So be obviously think about it, but be equally open-minded and opportunistic, and to some extent flow with the market where the opportunities are, both in terms of industry and roles, and also geography. I think Europe is an exciting place to be, right? Because you're actually kind of open to the European market. And on the visa front, I think again, candidates tend to worry about visa, but one of the drivers will be language. So again, like, you know, we're based in France, but most of our candidates go, about a third will stay in France, the rest will go around Europe, and often that's driven by language. So the ones that only speak English might, you know, they might go to Luxembourg or Dublin or London, and the ones that speak Spanish might go to Spain, you know. So it's often it's like on language as much as visa as well, because a lot of European countries will be quite open visa wise, particularly if you're bringing quite a bit of experience.
Yeah, I would also add on what Mark said, that language is really a factor. I mean, depending on the market, for sure. But for example, in Italy, of course, if you speak Italian, it's a big plus. So what I suggest, if you already know that you want to work in France or work in Italy, start learning the language, because that really can be a big game changer. So that's a consideration that you candidates don't always do, but it's really important.
And sorry, not to make this too much of my voice, but there's one category that always seems to get forgotten when we talk about careers broadly, but that's entrepreneurship. And I think all of us will say we welcome entrepreneurs into our cohorts and also have support mechanisms when they're exiting the program as well. So I think it's important to highlight that it doesn't just have to be those structured career routes that you're looking for, right? MBA, I want to go into consulting and I'm just going to do that. There are loads of opportunities for you to exercise, whether it's finding your co-founder, building your business during the summer instead of doing a summer internship, all of these sorts of things that will support and push entrepreneurs, throughout the program. So I just wanted to highlight that, because I feel like they always, it's always a question that we get ad hoc, but it should be part of the main conversation.
Sorry, Monet, you're absolutely right, and to bring that up, and I think it's probably another difference to the US as well. Again, it might be a factor of the fact that we tend to have a little bit of an older profile of candidates who often then like you leaving the corporate world, coming to business school in Europe or the UK because they have an entrepreneurial idea, or maybe not the idea yet, but they know they want to start their own business and go down that route. So like for us, it's about 10%, which doesn't sound very much, but is probably relatively high compared to the US. So yeah, it is absolutely, it's a viable option. Or just working in startups first and then going your own way.
Yeah, as someone that had done this whole visa and process, as I was also trying to figure out ways to stay in Europe more broadly, I don't think there's like a silver bullet. So there are people that pick the entrepreneurship route. There's people that obviously pick the more traditional and structured kind of recruiting options. And so one thing I just encourage everyone to think about is try to figure out, as we already talked about, through the language and wider opportunities that you could pick. So for example, because I can only speak English, I mean, I don't know enough of French or Dutch to work in some of these markets. Previously, having had a marketing background, it did mean that although I'm saying I want to stay in Europe, probably London's my biggest option. I could try like Berlin or Amsterdam, but again, in those markets, if I don't know enough of Dutch or I don't know German, it's going to be very hard. So yeah, I think try to play to your strengths and see how you could use that as you're looking at post-MBA opportunities. One question came up, which I don't really think we talked about, but Angelina was asking if any of the schools actually accommodate candidates that want to do dual degrees, so like a joint degree kind of MBA together. I did think so, but I just wanted to know for sure. So I was like, let's ask.
Maybe focus on an MBA with a specialization in the area you're looking at. Doing a joint degree, you won't have time for that, especially in the intensive format that some of us have. You just won't have time. But I mean, maybe there's others that allow that, but when you're intensive, you won't have time to do something else alongside of it. For us,
Absolutely agree. We have concentrations similar. So if you want to concentrate on a certain part of business, you can customize and flex your MBA to do that. But they are very intensive programs, especially if you're doing a 1 year as well. It's super intensive. It's going to demand all of your attention. So yeah, we don't do that for that reason.
It might be a good person as well as an example to sort of say why now for the MBA. If you're going through the legal, go and get your background in legal, go and work in that area, and you do get people come and do MBA with us or the other schools, and then maybe step into the business side of things. But doing them at the same time, you may be looking at the wrong thing there. Not wrong, but it's a good idea. But to look at a program that maybe it combines the two, or maybe stagger it a bit more and take your time with it.
Catherine, you wanted to add something?
Yes, maybe a different question, but that we have quite often is, can I work part-time during the MBA? For our MBA, the full-time MBA, unfortunately not as well, because it's so condensed in 1 year. So you have an opportunity to do an internship, and most cases those are remunerated. But unfortunately, it will be quite difficult unless you're a superhuman. But we encourage you to focus on the MBA itself, because it's 1 year where you really pause in your career.
Yep, that is very fair. And yeah, the MBA is intense, whether you're doing 1 year, 15 months, 21 months. And I think if you're pivoting or looking to deepen whatever experience you're trying to get post-MBA, the time flies. You don't have time to do more than all the other opportunities that are there, as we've kind of discussed. But yeah, I'd like to pass the time back to Melissa. I think we've addressed all the questions that have come in so far.
Thank you so much, Divya, for leading such a very informative conversation today. I felt like there were so many like hidden gems that a lot of our audience has got today. I just wanted to bring back like how grateful and appreciative we are to these schools today that sat on our panel and that shared their information with us. So thank you so much to these several sponsoring schools. And we'd love to see you at an upcoming pre-MBA webinar again. So our next one that will kind of close out the spring and beginning of summer season is going to be our May 13th, exploring how an MBA can change everything, which our panel will consist of some alumni sharing their experiences and their insight as well. So we'd love to see you then. If you happen to miss some of those webinars, no worries. They live on our YouTube channel, or you can go to our website and access quite a repository of some great webinars and information. Like I said, if you have any questions about today's panel or today's information or previous webinar or on demand, don't hesitate to reach out to us at pre-MBA at fortefoundation.org. So once again, thank you so much. Thank you so much to our panelist audience. If you want to connect with them, definitely grab their information from the chat so that you can continue this conversation further. So thank you so much, Divya, Vanessa, Monet, Andrew, Mark, and Catherine for such a great session. And thank you, audience, for investing in yourself and being here today to kind of spend this hour to learn how an MBA, a global MBA, can help you succeed. Bye, everybody.
Thank you. Bye.